Hey everybody, Tim here. So it has been a little while since I posted a video. I've been pretty busy in my personal life for the last few months. I directed a play and I had a few performances of my own. Work's been busy. I moved into a new office. It's just been a lot and go, go, go. So I have not been making videos, but I have been reading. And so I have my February reading wrap up for you today. I have 5 books to share with you, so let's dive right in. Continuing the number theme for 2026, the next book I read was Court of Fives by Kate Elliott. This is a fantasy novel that came out in 2015. There were parts of this that I really enjoyed, and then there were some parts that felt kind of lacking. I ultimately gave it 2 stars. There were some interesting character things that happened, and I liked getting to know the characters. There were some I wouldn't say twists necessarily, but there were some plot turns that I did not see coming. And so I kind of liked that it wasn't predictable in that way and that they went some places that I wouldn't have expected them to. So I kind of do applaud that. However, I don't think the ending really paid off. I think that this is the first book in a series. I'm not even sure how many there are, but this is book 1 of a series, and I think it was kind of relying on it being a series. So at the end of the book, a lot of things were not tied up. There was a lot of loose ends, and part of me maybe was curious to see how it would go, but since nothing really paid off, I kind of felt like I didn't have I don't want to say motivation, but I don't know. I kind of didn't care to read anymore. And this book was fine. It probably would have been a 3-star, except that I didn't really care to read anything else in the series. So that told me, okay, well, if I don't want to move forward, it's probably a 2. So I suppose I should tell you what it's about, actually. So Jessamy is the main character that you follow, and her family is like a commoner family, but they are kind of living like they're members of the court, just because of a position that her dad has as a general. I'm not sure if any of those words are correct, but that's the spirit of the titles. And Jessamy is like a lady of the court, but she sneaks out to perform in the Court of Fives, which is kind of like an obstacle course. It kind of felt like Hunger Games, in that they would have to go through these different trials. But some people did die as well, so it definitely felt kind of like Hunger Games light. But I guess one of my grievances is that when she was in the Court of Fives and running the fives, I think is how they described it, it seemed to kind of breeze through that. They weren't super detailed. Like, I kind of feel like if that's the title of the book and her whole ambition is to run these challenges, I want to spend a lot of time there. I want a lot of detail, but it seemed like they kind of breezed through them to move the plot along. So I don't know. I didn't really like that very much. But basically, she's running these challenges in secret, and then some things happen, and her family becomes disconnected and separated, and she spends the book kind of wanting to put her family back together. And so it sounded like a great premise, but I just didn't really feel like it landed at the end of the day, and I didn't really care to read it anymore. So Court of Fives got 2 stars from me. The next book I read was 6 Years by Harlan Coben. This is a thriller that released in 2013, and I gave this 3.5 stars. So this book was... I leave myself little notes so that because it's been about 2 months since I read these, and I've read a lot of books since then. Let's see here. So I wrote that this was a page turner. It kept me guessing, and there was lots of action. It took me a minute to get out of my normal, like, thriller/mystery mindset and realize, this is a thriller where they are going to be chased by guys with guns and big secret societies that are on your tail. I kind of was like, okay, you know what? If this was a John Wick book, then it would be great. So I just needed to kind of get my mindset into the right space to appreciate this for what it was. So this follows a man named Jake, who 6 years ago, he and his girlfriend broke up, and she's the one that got away. He's kind of been in love with her ever since then, and he's kind of, as I was reading the book, he kind of felt a little obsessive and a little stalkery, to the point where I was like, we don't really know what her perspective is. Did she agree? Because, that's the fine line of stalking, is basically whether or not they're into you too. So, you just didn't really know, but the questions did get answered. And like I said, there was a lot of action. It was a quick page turner. I'm pretty sure I read it within a day or two. The ending was fine. I thought it was okay. I bought it. I kind of didn't buy how quickly he and she had fallen in love. It kind of felt like a love at first sight thing. And I just didn't really buy that, but that's probably why it was only a 3.5 instead of a 4. But I really did like it. I guess what I didn't mention was that, they broke up 6 years ago, and he's respected the distance and stuff. She went and married someone else. And so he has just spent 6 years kind of pining away for her, but giving her space. And then he sees an article that her new husband has died. So he's kind of like trying to, maybe I can rekindle things. And then he shows up at the funeral for this guy and realizes that his ex is not the wife. It's not the widow. It's someone else. So what happened to her? And so it's just this thread that he keeps pulling, and it ends up turning into this big cover-up kind of situation. So yeah, it was good. It kept me guessing, and it was a fun ride. So, and this is also my first Harlan Coben book, so I definitely do want to read more by him, and I'm glad that I gave this one a try. So 6 years, got 3.5 stars. The next book that I read in my number series was 7 Reasons to Murder Your Dinner Guests by K.J. Whittle. This is a mystery that came out in 2025, so it's kind of a newer release. This one was kind of a fun little murder cozy. The back says 3 courses, 7 guests, 1 card. It's a deadly evening they'll never forget. And basically, a group of folks turn up at this dinner party. They're all invited. None of them know each other. They're like 7 strangers, and they get invited to this dinner party, and they don't really know who the host is either. And throughout the dinner, the host never appears. But a card does appear at each of their table settings. And the card says, I don't even want to really give a spoiler. The card says something, kind of like a prediction for each character. And the predictions start coming true. And so this follows multiple point of views of the different dinner guests. You kind of get to know each of them. None of them are really great people, which you kind of come to realize is probably why they were all invited to this dinner. So I gave this one 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. It was a quick little read. It's been compared to Agatha Christie's And Then There Were None. A group of folks come in, and then premonitions or whatnot being made. And it's funny because I read this a few weeks before I went and saw And Then There Were None at a community theater, and I was not familiar with that script. I know Agatha Christie, but I had not known that script specifically or that play. So reading this book, it was kind of fun to finish it and then like a week or two later go and see And Then There Were None. And there were definitely a lot of differences. This is just kind of like a spiritual cousin of that play. But I liked it a lot, and I thought the ending was okay. It was fine. I would have liked to maybe dig into the characters a bit more. It's hard because there were so many different point of views. I mean, there were 7 different guests, so we had to see all of their perspectives at some point until things start happening. But anyway, I would recommend this one. It was definitely kind of a fun, easy read, and the ending wasn't perfect, but I was happy with the ending a lot. The next book I read was The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle by Stuart Turton. And this is a mystery that came out in 2018. I gave this one 3 stars. It could have been better. I think that, like the last book, they have multiple POVs. My main issue or beef with this book is that when you read the back, it sounds like a really interesting premise. For example, it talks about Evelyn Hardcastle will die. I mean, that's in the title, so that shouldn't be a surprise. Every day until so-and-so can identify the killer and break the cycle, but every time the day begins again, this character wakes up in the body of a different guest, and some of the hosts are more helpful than others. So it's kind of like Groundhog's Day, repeating the same day. But it took 75 pages before any of that happened. So you're reading this book and you're waiting to meet Evelyn, waiting for Evelyn to die. The character is very confused. They have like a bad memory. So for this first 75 pages, it was really hard for me to get through it just because I liked what was on the back of the book and I wanted to get to that. And inevitably, day one ends and then day two starts and he's in a brand new body and it's, you're off to the races. So it was slow in that regard. I really think that the beginning could have been better, honestly. But once he got going, he wakes up every morning in a different guest at this party. Because the setting is this old kind of like Gilded Age type manor house. I feel like the setting is more modern day, though. I think the house is just old. But they didn't have like cell phones or anything, or maybe they did. I don't remember. It's been a few months since I read this. The setting is at this like manor house. There's this prominent family and a bunch of dinner guests or people, not dinner even, but like just house guests are there for the weekend. And Evelyn is the daughter of the Hardcastle family. And so you're trying to find out who is her murderer and why are they doing it. Yeah. I think similar to this book that I read, they're very similar. So if you like one, I think you'd like the other. Neither of them are perfect, but they were fun reads. They were unique. They were ambitious in that they tried something kind of big. I don't know that they really landed 100%, but I did like the ride. This one, I would read more by this author. I didn't really like, again, that the beginning dragged so much, and then I didn't love the ending. In fact, I wrote that the ending was not satisfying. So I think there were some surprises and it wasn't predictable. So I did like that, but it wasn't my favorite. So, did I even tell you? Yeah, I gave it 3 stars. The last book that I read in February was called Eighth Moon by Bette or Betty. I'm not quite sure. I think Bette. Bette Bow Lord. And this is a memoir. It was written in 1964, so this is an old one. This one was not even recommended to me. My friend Janelle knew that I was doing the number thing, and she saw Eighth Moon, and so she picked it up for a few bucks at a thrift store. And so this is a memoir, like I said. It follows the life of a young Chinese girl growing up in the 1950s in communist China. And so that was very interesting, just to kind of follow her life and see the things that she went through. I gave this one 4 stars, and it feels kind of weird to give star ratings to somebody's life story, like, oh, your life wasn't that interesting or whatever. It feels a little weird. I enjoyed this. I flew through it, and it was such a nice palate cleanser from all of the murder, mystery, thriller type books that I had been reading up until this point. So I loved this quick little break. Why it's not a 5 for me is that the back of the book, it says right there, I would journey anywhere to be with my real family. And so I expect that this book is going to be about the journey for her to go to America to meet her real family, her biological family. But that's not the case. You spend the entire book going through different phases of her life growing up in communist China. It's her school years. It's when she's working. It's the relationship she has with her adopted family. And at the very end, you know she's ultimately going to end up going to America because that's what the back says. But this is not a book about that journey. It's basically like the entire story of her life. And then at the end, she goes to America and meets her family. So I kind of didn't like that the back of the book made me think this was going to be something else. And then it wasn't, if that makes sense. I found it super interesting to be reading about communist China just because that is not something we really studied in school where I grew up. And it was just so interesting reading about a perspective that was so different from my own. So I appreciated that, and it made me appreciate a lot of what I have experienced in my own life. So yeah, just a great little palate cleanser, and I enjoyed this book. I'd recommend it if anybody likes, I was going to say historical fiction, but it's not fiction because it's a true story. So those are the 5 books I read in February. I did continue the number theme into March, and I will get that video up pretty soon. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.